Oh, bright. Okay, I'm good. Excuse me, chair. I'm trying to make a stream here. The stream's slowly getting better, but the chair is a large pain in my neck. Stream looks good. 0 viewers, just how I like it. Bitrate, I'm sure I'll learn what that means one of these days. But I have a big red orange live button. Let's just dive in, because at least the replay will work out. Should be recording that much. So what I've done is I've imported my line art. I've converted it to a fill layer, so I can potentially change the color if I wanted to. And in my layer group down here, I'm going to, first of all, before I jump into that, I have a few edits I need to make to the actual line art. So I'm going to grab a brush here, and I made little notes, as you can see here, for things which I changed my mind on. Because I'm inking in pen, if I do make a mistake, my last chance is fixing it in Photoshop. I think I fixed the issue, it looks like it, where you can hear every slide of my stylus, every painful slide of the stylus was quite audible before. So there was that, and there was another one, maybe I'll find it later. Oh, it's here. Yeah, I wanted to join these two islands of grass together. So I'm just going to do that right about here. Some behind the scenes at just how cobbled together these maps are. I think right there looks right. See, you would have never known if I hadn't streamed it. And there'll probably be other edits we'll make later, but for now, I'm pretty well satisfied with the line art. But yeah, there was things like here, like this line, it's a bit much. There's a few marks on my actual scanning table, scanning bed, whatever it's called. A few little dusty specks, which I could potentially get rid of with like a filter or something, but my scan is new enough and clean enough that I just kind of edits it away. And before we get too caught up in cleaning, I'm going to try and get out of the habit of using spacebar to pan, because that's probably awfully loud, isn't it? Yeah, let me not do that. Hey MLP Wolf 10, thanks for saying so. Good to know chat's working and there's real people on the other side. Thanks for your vote of confidence. Yeah, hopefully it still looks beautiful after we've colored it in. We can't go too wrong, can we? The real question is where to start. I think I'm going to start with pavement. So when I'm coloring in, I'm just picking an approximate color. Here's a greenish gray, because I want, like, at the end of it all, I want a jungle kind of color scheme. My webcam fine. Yeah. So it's going to be very green shifted. So you can see the difference between a regular gray. This gray is void of saturation, and this gray is, you know, shifted towards the yellow, but it's still clearly gray. It's like a cobble gray. You know what? The color underneath it all is going to be our mud. So let's just change this to a deep muddy color. And then I'm a bit undecided. Sometimes I paint very precisely, and other times I just kind of try and block colors in. I think I'm going to go with the blocking in style this time. It's rather fun. We can afford to zoom in a bit more. I'll try and zoom in a bit so that y'all can see what I'm doing. So this is a fun brush that I've thrown together. I ran into an issue where the brushes I were using before, the kind of watercolor looking stuff, I made those brushes available publicly, and ever since then there's been a lot of maps using them. So I've been trying to break away from that brush style in everything I do. I still use occasionally, but I want my maps to be a little bit unique. So anyway, so I developed this brush, and I like it. It's got some fun texture. If I just paint over here, you can do all sorts of fun stuff. And then if you cut back into that shape, see, that's got a lot of character to it, doesn't it? So it's not perfect for every surface. Is that super audible? It's still pretty audible, isn't it? I'll work on that. But it's pretty good. Yeah. Hey, Yale. It's good to see you again. So we do have a vague beetle. If I were to block that in, this is our vague beetle shape. Like a little hint, I guess, of a beetle. So this is fun. We're just blocking in colors. I don't need to fill it in completely to have like muddy patches. Might even look nice, but most of that will come later. Right now we're just blocking in the big old color areas. Just busy work. And then none of these colors are final. They're all going to be changed by the end. Not too audible? Oh, you mean the brush strokes? That's good. I thought you meant my voice for a second there. I noticed on some of the replays it was like super painful to listen to, so I've been doing a few things to remedy that. Hey Ender Grim, welcome to the stream. If any of you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please do let me know. So our grass is going to go over this layer, so I'm going to overlap a tad with the grass there, just so we don't have like a muddy transitionary line. There will be a water stream. Frank B, we have 3 water streams. If I borrow our pavement layer, there's one coming down here, one coming through here, one coming down here, and they're going to create like a big cloud of vapor down there. And I think it's going to look pretty nice. That was an idea by viewers such as yourselves yesterday, named Frank. So this Twitch streaming is really paying off in that there's a lot of people more creative than I throwing ideas into this big cooking pot. I'll probably borrow this and make it not so much a pavement layer as much as a rock layer. Because I usually imagine that kind of masonry buildings are built with rock from nearby quarries, so it's usually the same color. And it also helps tie together like a continuous color scheme. I don't want too many colors in. Having said that, I've gone and avoided coloring in that rock because I'm not decided completely yet. Hey, the Roman Kiltle, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoy the replay when you get round to it. Replay, shouldn't say this live, but Replay might be a better way to watch this stream. You can watch it at like 10 times speed and just watch it materialize super fast. Excuse me. It's something about having a camera pointed at me makes my nose itch. It's like every time I start streaming, that's when my nose begs to be itched. Endergrim, that's a good question. For those on YouTube, he asks what level characters I imagine entering this battle map. And really the answer is any level. Because mostly I draw battle maps without a level in mind. And whatever the dungeon master who decides to use that map, you know, it's up to them to choose the monsters they populate it with and choose the DCs as well. Like, I have a DC in mind for my party to run across here and jump from route to route, but you might choose a different DC. It might make it a little bit easier for a lower level party. Just going to border this in. Right, we're overlapping a bit with our grass, so I can pretty much go wild here. It's just a tad crazy over here. We'll figure that out in a bit. See, with my line art and even my colors, I like to keep things pretty ambiguous. Just to leave space for the imagination, that's what I say. What's the fun in 10 times speed? Yeah. Well, maybe, I imagine map drawing is much more interesting thing to watch for people who don't do it on a daily basis, but for me, I think 10 times speed is much more entertaining. This brush is just so much fun, just swooping it here and there. And then I'll leave these tiny little scratches in. It just adds a little bit of texture. Are we pretty much done for cobblestone? Yeah, I might jump into grass next. Let's pick a vibrant, oof, not that vibrant, goodness. Something like that. And then we're gonna, sometimes I like to block these in from afar and then I'll zoom in and do them close up. Just this helps me make sure I don't miss any. There, that, and on this side. Now I'm actually going to reduce this way down for now so that I can see more clearly transition between the grass and stuff. So I'm not, actually I need to decide on a brush size, maybe 150. I'm not precisely following these lines because I don't want it to be, colored in so precisely, like to the line where I'm zoomed in like this and I'm painting in like this. Like that's, sometimes I'll do that, and especially for the tokens and things which I want to be precisely colored, I'll do that. But for battle maps, and especially like wild wilderness battle maps, I like to keep things like a controlled chaos kind of messiness. And sometimes I change my mind on that and I'll go back and tidy up the lines. But I like to, like, sometimes I'll scratch out, and it kind of just adds to the texture, the line texture we went with when we added the grass border. So it's kind of complementing what we already have here. And then just for an extra painterly style, I've left this gap at the edge between where the line art ends and the actual canvas ends. And it just, I kind of like the look. I did it by accident at first, but I like the look enough to keep it. And maybe I'll crop that out later, but for now it looks rather nice, I think. Nice little effect. And then edge of our stream is here. Hey Starch, yeah, we just started. That's the advantage to me starting so late in the night, is that you can join us pretty early. And I'm glad you all like tuning in. Get some creative energy from it. It's part of the reason why I started streaming on Twitch, to kind of borrow your input, ideas, and just enthusiasm, all that jazz, and it's working well. So for things like the grass, I like to keep the brush the same size, and if it's too large for an area like this, then I just brush and deliberately go outside the lines here, and then I'll erase back. And we get like I don't know, in and out. If I'm not making much sense tonight, please excuse me. I've had a big old day earlier. I think, what am I up to on my Fitbit? 24 kilometers? That's a lot for me. So I'm a little bit cooked as we stay here in Australia. A little bit cooked, literally, as in the sun's cooked my brain. And this brush I'm using today, I haven't used extensively in battle maps. I used it for the most recent few, like last month. But it's still very young, and I'm still kind of figuring out what I like to use it for. Right now I'm just kind of using it for everything and seeing what I like. But I like it, and it's if I can get good at it, it will be like a new kind of signature brush for my maps. You know, the signature brush used to be that watercolor look, and then people started getting a bit too good at replicating it. Now I'm looking for a new signature brush. Kind of set myself a little piece of land, a little something that can be mine. I've been sitting on my foot too, and it's quite asleep. MLP Wolf. Yes, Dutch, there are a lot of dangerous spiders here. You're not wrong. But, you know, I can go months without seeing one, so they're not as prevalent as the rumors may tell you. Like my parents' house, they've got quite an infestation. Not an infestation, that's kind of overkill, but I mean, more than once in a year, I'd wake up in the night and I'd see one on the roof above me. Whereas here, maybe it's because we're not on the ground floor, but there's many fewer spiders. It's not a daily occurrence. Actually, I think I ran into more spiders in Japan. They're just less poisonous there. And I've never in my life been bit by a spider, so it's not that much to worry about. You just be smart about it. Have some bug spray handy. Yeah, I like that idea, Endergrim. I was thinking lizard folk too. I think, like when I was drawing this, I was inspired by Warhammer, the lizard folk in there, and they're kind of a Mayan, you know, inspired by the Mayans or their architecture anyway. So yeah, you could see the similarities. I mean, officially, this is like an entrance. This gate here is an entrance to the Underdark / whatever dungeon you need an entrance for. But we can also, you know, use this as kind of the centerpiece of an adventure rather than merely the entrance to an adventure. The edges of this grass look rather odd right now, but later on when we reduce the contrast in all these colors, it will blend much better, much more nicely. Right now there's deliberately a lot of contrast so that I can see what I'm doing. And that's one of the reasons why I like working with masks, because I can paint with a very convenient color, then later on I can change it and I can change it to pink if I wanted to. And also the secondary reason is because I'm terrible at choosing colors right the first time. Much less to worry about if I can change it at any time. Is there a way to make live chat standard instead of top chat? I see you're watching from YouTube, Yale. I don't know what the difference is, sadly. I don't know about mobile. I'm still so new to the streaming thing. Unfortunately, I can't do much about it unless you just tell me how to fix it right now. But I can look into it another time. Yeah, there's probably a monstrosity down here. I did just finish an Aboleth token, so maybe he lives down there. And I'm sure he would glow in the dark. I was hoping you finish this one off today. How's time looking? It's 7:30 p.m. here, where I am in Australia. I think I'll put a good hour into this and hopefully get the coloring finished so that I can kind of publish this tomorrow. That's the plan. I doubt that I'll finish the coloring in an hour, but yeah, we got a good pace going. We'll see. Also haven't had dinner yet. Checks. Oh, interesting. Gold and obsidian details. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that this whole edging would be a distinct color. So we can work with kind of black stone and gold stone. We'll see how that works. I think the plan is put in the jungle color scheme first. Decide on what color our trees and grasses are. And then from there we can choose a nice color scheme that would complement the whole thing well for the pavement. I'm going to come back for the root later, since we're going to have like a wood layer. Probably, I guess the only wood we've got is the root, so we'll have a root layer later on. This year is trees, so we don't have to worry about that. I think I'll do the water layer next, just because I want to paint with the blue brush. Even if the eventual color of the water will probably be a green or a brown. Hold on, this here is tree, so. But at this point in the work process, it's going to be a nice, bright, fun blue. How is the audio today, by the way? Is it okay? I've changed my audio setup quite a bit. Nobody's complained yet, so that's a good sign. Okay, our grass looks pretty good. It looks pretty bad actually, but it's filled in pretty good. Let's just plunge that down a bit, and as promised, let's do the water next. Oof, right. Something right about there. I wonder if we can do something fun with this brush with the water. I'm just going to brush the general pathway, and then we're going to kind of ruffle it up at the edge. And down here, just have it disappear. And what I like to do with this brush too, just so it's not all scratchy, is probably with a smaller brush than that, rustle up the edge with the blur tool, and then I come back with this one and I start brushing back in, preferably at different directions each time. And this is pretty much the secret as to how I made that volcanic lava, which I haven't shared anywhere yet, so perhaps that doesn't mean anything to you yet. And we could definitely add some more body to this. But basically, I imagine it just disappearing down into the darkness / into the vapor. So we'll use another layer later on to have it fade away. But for now, it's just going to be very bold, like this. I'm using the color dropper to pick out different shades from here. And that's how I'm getting all these different kind of color zones. And I can sweep back in and blur some of it up. And basically I just want a half and half mix of scratchy stuff and blurry stuff. So that the scratchy stuff gives us the painterly texture, but the blurry stuff gives us some more gentle transitions, like a gradient, right? Okay, we played with that enough. D&D Bob Ross, that's a great accomplishment, thank you. I'll do my best. Yeah, it will be a swampier color later on. Like sometimes I do use a blue and I just reduce the opacity, and then somewhere between the blue and the brown will be my eventual color. Or I use a green kind of color. You can't see my color, not like that, but somewhere. It takes a lot of fiddling to get watercolor right, especially. But something else eventually. But right now I'm working with very vibrant colors. And I might have like a secondary water for big, large strokes down here for misty stuff. So let's do that again. Sweeping through here. So I need this water underneath the grass layer, in fact. MLP Wolf, this is Photoshop, and to draw the line art, that was done with paper and pencil. And then give it, start kind of hatching away here. Kind of, I guess if we bundle up some shapes here like clouds, and then we grab our blur brush, we can perhaps work with that. So I'm gonna just blur this to hell and back. And then we'll come back and tidy it up next. So that's kind of quick and dirty way to the bulk of this shape. And then the next step, of course, is we come and add some texture back. But all this blurry stuff serves the function of getting like a nice, kind of almost like a background texture to our actual texture. I mustn't forget to also hack away at the edges. Yeah, it's interesting. Something. Well, we could say this will be my very first happy little cloud. It just happens to be a vapor cloud. So I guess I'm leaning into the Bob Ross thing. Whether I'll have an actual pool down there or just have it disappear into vapor, I haven't decided yet. And yeah, this is I'm using Restream to split the stream up and send it to YouTube and Twitch at the same time. So I'm talking to other people who you won't see in the Twitch chat, in the YouTube chat. That's why I try and make a habit out of repeating the question before I answer it. And if one of these days I'm going to add a little text widget, a little chat widget to the stream itself so that you can kind of see what's going on all streams by looking at the video feed. But I'm in super crunch mode this month getting maps out, so all that stream fiddly business will come next month. Okay, let's try that again. Have some happy little clouds going around here. Kind of like that. And then we're gonna smudge it up. Gonna beat the devil. I screwed that up. I'm so sorry. We're gonna beat the devil out of it, just like that. And we're gonna come back in and add some more texture back. And we just go wild with this brush, and we get all sorts of interesting shapes and textures. That's why I like it. Need like a middle blue. Yeah, that one will do. This is a big old cloud, isn't it? Like when we reduce the contrast of these colors, it's going to look much better. Just trust me. Trust me, guys. It's going to look good eventually. Okay, we've spent a while on our water, but I quite like it. The colors are quite different here and there, but you'll be right. So we've got our 3 little streams going down. Nice. Composition wise, it could be better. But it's okay. I like it. Let's go next to our, what I should do. Put these, excuse me, I just punched the microphone. Put these into a done folder, and then I can reduce the opacity on all of them. And then my kind of working, oof, so bright every time. Oh my goodness, painful. So we'll kind of work with this layer up here. And this will be our treetops, our canopy. And I probably need a bigger brush for you. big old canopy here. The fun stuff will come when we add the shadow layer and maybe a highlight layer. I don't do a highlight on every map, but if it's appropriate, we'll play around with it. But I think, you know, in my mind, this is a rainforest kind of jungle, rainy jungle. So it's probably overcast. So there's probably not a highlight, probably just a shadow. And the main reason I want to put a shadow on this is to plunge that hole into a whole bunch more depth. Like an easy way to add a whole lot more depth to the sinkhole is by adding a shadow on one side and letting the other side be bathed in light. So we've got our trees kind of bordering the entire image. Hey, welcome, Frank. Are you the same Frank that was here last night? I see you're on Twitch this time, if so. But glad you woke up early enough to make it. Streaming for another 40 minutes or so, hoping to finish off the coloring, but also not like hurrying ourselves. There's our canopy, the base layer. Put that down there. What are we missing? I see a bit of grass that we missed down here. Let's just jump in. It kind of comes over here under the roots. So we need to do the roots at some point. I'm kind of putting them off since they're going to be rather intricate. But it looks like we may be at that stage now. Yep, let's bite the bullet, eat the frog, color the roots. We're going to go above all layers except for the canopy. Usually I'm being diligent with naming these layers, but my keyboard's just a little bit out of reach. And we're going to go with a bright white for now, since I need to follow these shapes quite precisely. We're going to drop our brush size down, maybe to a 50. Gotcha. Still playing with our scratchy brush, just because it adds a little bit of texture to our wood. So you can see my coloring style. If you tuned into my token coloring stream, that was a lot more intricate than this one. But because we're doing a battle map, my style for battle maps are quite different. Much more chaotic. Much more painterly is what I'm going for. Whereas the tokens are computer graphics. They're very precise. They look like intricate illustrations. Whereas these still have the physical pen marks with all their little defects And then in the color, I like to mix in a few deliberate mistakes too. Well, they're not deliberate, but they're deliberately left in. I'm not using a mouse, I'm using this guy. Where's my camera? Over here. Yeah. And I have a tablet. So, like a Wacom Cintiq is the tablet I'm using. So it's a screen basically that accepts stylus input, so I can see precisely where I'm coloring. And even after years of using it, it's still so much fun. Feels like magic. Best thing I ever bought in regards to my artworks. Although a little bit more versatile is the Microsoft Surface, which I also have, which I use for when I'm traveling. I make all my maps on that when I'm traveling. And it's much more affordable, plus it doubles as a tablet and a computer. So I highly recommend Microsoft Surface. I've also seen amazing things done on iPads. So basically any old tablet these days with a stylus, and the main thing you want is pressure sensitivity. Then you can do all sorts of stuff with pressure sensitivity. Which just means that it can tell how hard you're pressing on the screen with your pen, and it can change the brush based on that, make it thicker or any old thing you can set it to do in Photoshop. That's the main thing, is thickness. Oof, after walking so much today, it's nice just to sit down. Nice to sit down, but I feel like I don't have much sense to, I don't know, I feel like my wordery is difficult to convey. Yeah, for a long time I drew with a mouse too, but I highly recommend, highly recommend getting some kind of tablet if you're if you want to progress, I suppose. Like, I cut my teeth drawing with the mouse, but if you want to go professional to any extent, I've never heard of a professional using a mouse. If I mean, if only to save time, I would upgrade to a tablet as soon as you can afford one, I mean. But yeah, I'm pretty proficient with the mouse myself. Thanks, Connor. I'm glad you're liking it. The colors are horrendous right now. I mean, why are these roots white? It's just because that's my perhaps odd work method. And then later on, when all the colors are blocked in, we're going to choose some intelligent jungle themed colors. But yeah, I'm happy with how the line art turned out. And hopefully we can do it justice with the colors. And of course, these base layer colors, these color layers, and the whole Photoshop file is something you can get your hands on as a patron if you want to try your own hand at manipulating the colors. Super easy to do, though my streaming setup, I can't show you how it's done, but because you can't see the dialog window I'm opening up right now. But basically with a color picker you can change any of these layers into any color you want. And then once we have a big shadow layer over the top of them all, it's gonna kind of marry them all together and make them look like they belong together, whereas right now they're very jarring. In some ways, having these imprecise, scratchy edges takes longer and more work than precisely following the edges with a round brush and then filling the whole thing in. So I'm still not decided which style I prefer. Really just have to compare and see which one I like the look of better and whether it's worth extra work. Especially in crunch times like this. The reason I'm drawing battle maps and not assets right now is because assets and tokens especially take eons to finish up. Whereas a battle map is like a bite-sized chunk of work. I could finish a battle map in 2 days if I organize my time better. Yesterday's stream where it took an hour stream to draft the battle map, conceptualize it, figure out the layout and what kind of obstacles we were going to put on it. And then it took 2 hours to ink the thing, to draw it, all the line art. And then now we're coloring it too. We'll see how long this takes. And then there's also a decent amount of work that happens off stream, such as importing the scan into Photoshop. And the main chunk of work comes when I publish this on the internet. There's a whole lot of packaging that goes on, converting it into PDF files and optimizing it for Roll20 and all the little steps that go into actually putting it on my website. It takes a good 2 hours as well. Now that's a very general breakdown. Whereas if I'm drawing tokens, drawing one token takes a good hour to draw, and then to get everything right and precise, kind of work with the line art until I'm happy with it. I mean, I can bust out a little pose that I like in about 2 minutes, but then actually putting the detail down on those lines, getting it all balanced and looking good takes a full hour, and that's before even putting any color on it or shadow, which takes a lot of thought. So it's very interesting doing these Twitch streams because it gives me a good overview of how much time I'm spending on each little step of the way. That's interesting. So basically, yeah, the rest of this month is going to be battle maps because I'm running so low on time. How many days have we got until the end of the month? I'm not entirely sure. I've been rambling a long time without looking at Twitch chat. Let me catch up. Oh yeah, I'll not miss this. Thank you, Hadden Valn. Almost missed this old route going this way. We got a couple routes coming over the cobblestone. Just trying to break up the hard transition between the wall and the floor. I'm going to come back to these ones. We got a bit of grassy stuff happening here. I intend that to be tree. I guess our tree comes here. Yeah. some tree. Yeah, the white roots are pretty cool. Sometimes I stumble across cool little tidbits like that as I'm coloring. How do we look up here? I do like, now that they colored in, I do like this design we have. When it was lines only, it looked a bit messy and chaotic, but now that we see the colors on it, it looks rather balanced. And I think that was completely by accident. I think we need a smaller brush for these ones, just to not spend too much time here with the eraser. Am I zooming in too much? Is that confusing? And that root disappears behind there. Got a little bit of grass here too. My grass was 150, 100. Bit of grass that we missed there. Nice. Come back to the 50 brush. Oh, we got some more grass here. Okay, MLP Wolf, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit follow if you want to come back at some point, then you'll get a nice little notification. Because I don't always announce when I'm streaming on Twitter. That was just today. Although you probably already followed. Yeah, I see now you followed an hour ago. Thanks. Thanks. Smart. Yep, I said I wouldn't forget this one. So let's hold true to that. I want to stream more in the daytime, just so I can have some natural light coming in. These streams always look so depressing with this kind of white light of the monitor on my face, and those old dim lights behind me, and you know, the stream itself kind of the colors are kind of muted too. It's all a little bit depressing. Okay, roots are good. Pretty good for roots. There may be other details which we have to do. It's just occurred to me how cold I am. Yeah, I'm thinking we're gonna choose, I think next we're gonna jump into some more water and just get a big texture happening down below. Just work on our vapor texture is what I'm trying to say. I have a different brush here which is a bit bigger, and I think that might work well. A bit more scattered. I really should have tidied these up before I started streaming, but too late for that. See how this is super cloudy. So it's annoyingly it's underneath. I mean, it's over the top of our cobble. We don't want that. So this is going to be super close to the color of the darkness below. But we just want to get some cloudy stuff. And of course, with our cloudy stuff, if you just joined us now, we're going to cloud it up with the blur tool. Then we kind of come back over and add some texture back in. So my old style was pretty much clouding it up with the blur tool and calling it done. I was just a little bit more restrained with the blur tool. Is this a blur tool or smudge tool? I've been saying blur tool, but it's actually the smudge tool. Excuse me. You know what will be fun is when we figure out where our shadow's coming from, just occlude this misty stuff from where the shadow's falling on it. I'll have to show you what I mean later. Okay, that's blurry enough. Now we'll come back in. It starts hacking back in. And then we're just sparingly adding texture back in. Not so much a cloudy texture, but a painterly texture so that it looks kind of... It's like a stylistic choice, right? Like, we're not working with watercolor when we're in Photoshop, but lots of people like the watercolor look, so they choose brushes that look watercolory, whereas this is kind of like a dry brush kind of look, which I personally like. It's a lot of character, I think. Adds a lot of character. So like that. Now we could bear to put some highlights on there if it were better lit down there, but because it's not better lit, and in fact the contrast is going to be closer to like that, we're going to leave it as is. And I'm going to leave that as is too. I think this needs a... We're going to put our waterfalls into this group, and then with a mask and a gradient tool, we're going to encourage them to fade away like that. Right? And that's going to help our transition down here into this. And I can always turn that off later if I don't like it. Yeah, yo, I'm pretty strange. I've heard a lot of people like working at night, or it comes naturally to them at night, especially creative work. I tend to find it's the first thing in the morning for me. Seldom do I actually get to work first thing in the morning, but when I do, I think I'm the kind of person who can't relax until all the chores are done in the day. So I enjoy working first thing in the mornings because it feels like I'm ticking things off the to-do list, and later on in the day I'll get to relax with play some Spider-Man or whatever. These clouds are awesome, fun to draw. Happy little clouds. Look, we've come full circle back to that. These are the happy little clouds where your happy little players are going to tumble down and disappear. Yeah. But if your creative work is your relaxation for the day, then I can definitely see why or how that would be come more naturally at night. That makes a lot of sense. For me, there's a strange, there's quite a distinct difference between 2-minute tabletop mapping work and my actual creative stuff. like occasionally I'll get inspired to draw something in particular and it won't feel like work whatsoever, but 99% of the time it still feels like work. You know, I guess I'm just the sort of person whose leisure time involves no effort at all. Like whatever I'm doing should be rather easy. Actually, I feel like I should just redact everything I've said because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, this cloud looks good. Our vapor down in the depths. So let's move on. I was going to draw the shadow next. So we're going to do this first with broad strokes. This is where the fun actually begins, guys. I'm going to choose my deep purple shadow as usual. Although it'll probably shift towards a blue by the end of today. We'll see. I'm going to lighten up that mud for now so that we can see what we're doing better. So everything's pretty light right now, and it will change later. And then we're going to start grooving out our shadow. First of all, I have to decide where it's coming from, and I have to hit the save button once in a while. And also I'm going to put this shadow below the canopy layer and do a separate shadow for the canopy, just so that I don't have to play with the transitions between the trees. So I can, if I were to just quick and dirty do a top-down shadow, it would look like this. And you can see how, just even though this is super quick and dirty, we've suddenly added so much more depth and intrigue to the map, right? So we're going to do that again, but more intelligently. As soon as I decide which way the shadow's coming from. And sometimes it helps to rotate the canvas and get a new perspective. So let's rotate 180. See, it looks like a completely new map to me. So I think what would be most interesting is if we have the light coming in this direction. So let's block something like that in and see if we like it. So it's going to come down and be on this side, and the sun will fall across there. What I want is to have half, roughly half of our frog platform in shadow, like that. So I guess the sun's coming from pretty much the top. Okay, how does that look? Usually I look at this thumbnail over here and see what it looks like from afar. I'd like to include a tongue bridge token too, yeah, for when the tongue extends. Usually the maps are pretty obvious where the shadow should go, but this one is not obvious. think we can plunge this whole side into shadow. That will help us break up what of this mess here is traversable. That tree will cast a big shadow. In fact, these trees up off the map's edge will cast quite a large shadow. And then we can sneak a bit of shadow in down here too. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. And then actually down in the hole, the shadow is going to pretty much fill this whole area. And we can brighten up. What I'll do is I'll brighten up quite subtly the platforms which I intend to be traversable, because they're not super obvious right now. I guess they kind of are, because we haven't put any mess beneath them. So they're pretty obvious what's traversable, which is handy. And this edge here will super rough that up. We'll bring back our blur tool and we'll basically create a gradient there. Yeah, I think we will have the shadow on this side because this side's much more obvious. It doesn't need the aid of the shadow to show what's traversable because it's a stone platform that stands out. And then we need to give a bit of body to the water spray. And then basically some leafy stuff. Super rough shadow edge for Canopy that's casting a shadow down here. So I quite like that. We're going to clean up the edges, but as a general layout, pretty good. And what we can do, just kind of cheat a bit here. It's not cheating. I don't know why I said that. It feels like cheating because it's too easy. Okay. I quite like it. I think I'll shift it into a blue right about now. Okay, now let's get started. I think we're going to bring out that legacy brush, which is this brush, which you'll see prevalent across a lot of my maps. And I kind of use it for leafy edges. Leafy edges where there's no actual line art edge. It's a bit big, this one. Although I think actually we're going to be a bit purist with this brush for this map, since it was going so well, and I did like that edge. We just need to add that element of blur, and we need to decide kind of how far the shadow is going to come out. You see, if we really tussle it up, it gives us like a canopy, like a broken up canopy kind of look. No, I like it a lot. Oh, excuse me, that was the wrong color altogether. This whole time I've been painting with an off-white. That's painful to learn. I can fix that still by doing this. It's just gonna kind of up the contrast on our edges, but since we're not finished with the edges, that's acceptable. It's still not completely there. Oop. Okay, we're back in business. Streaks of light, yeah, I like that. So we'll have little streaks coming through like this. Yeah, that looks super nice. Good idea. Yao, thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, have I misunderstood you and accidentally? Yeah, I'll just claim this idea as my own. Never mind. Yeah, this kind of streak of light, that looks nice. I like that a lot. Need a couple of thick ones and a couple of thin ones. And yeah, and then what Yao was saying, we'll break up the canopy with a bunch of tussled brush edges and strokes and mess. Except down here, that should be kind of collapsed away. And then our stairs here are casting a shadow. Like so. Then there should be a little shadow in here on the edge of the stream. So we got the general shape in, and we'll start doing it for real now, tidying it up. And then this is kind of our major shadow layer. Then there'll be a minor shadow layer, which will be kind of a ambient occlusion kind of style, which I might do right now. Oh, it's so dark. How are we going for time? About time for me to wrap up, so I might be finishing this one off tomorrow, everyone. I'll do a little tiny bit of stuff here just to demonstrate. So this shadow layer will be for shadows in the fully lit area, just to basically more texture than shadow, just to break up these huge color areas. I need a smaller brush, but like that. And then we'll go in with a bunch of different shades and just fill in bits and pieces. But it's about time for me to call it a night tonight. So I'd like to thank you all, as always, for tuning in and providing your input and your good ideas. If you haven't already, please hit the follow button so that you're notified when we pick this back up tomorrow. And I'm off to enjoy a nice dinner. So enjoy your evening/morning and see you next time.